Welcome to Artkyk. This is Urvacha.
And this is Yamini. We love to talk about art.
So do join us as we share our insights of this world with you. Hi, Yamini.
Hey, Uruja. And we're back again to unravel yet another interesting
mysteries of the art world.
Yes, and today's topic is especially something that I'm very, very fond of. It's, of course, paper.
Yes, I know we were talking about it, and the moment you started talking about it, I was like, oh, but there's so much even I don't know about this. So it'll be great to be able to talk about it, on this podcast and share it with everybody else who's listening. So let's start with paper. When we first started talking about it, I, like many other people, always thought that paperwork from an artist is something that you probably acquire to add to a collection, and it sort of may not be a core sort of artwork that you look at as compared to and then you obviously had many other things to say on the subject. So
no, first thing, I think, yes, artists typically have paper as the first point where they kind of sketch out their ideas. But there are many who only and exclusively work on paper. And that is their core medium. And that becomes the only thing that is ever available. I think all these years I've always spoken about it in this manner that don't look at it as a stepchild. It's not secondary to any other medium, but it's a medium on its own. And, Urvacha, you look at the art market more closely.
Yeah.
You can add on to it by saying that why something like that happens.
No, so, I was looking at some of the artists we were discussing who have worked extensively on both, canvases and paperworks. And when you just look at it from a pricing point of view, typically paperwork is slightly more modestly auctioned off at as compared to canvas work, an oil work rather, an acrylic. So that's where my question was also arising from, that what is it that makes paperwork more special, but why is it that people typically feel that it is something that is a little more sort of, I don't want to use the word less substantial or anything of that sort, more sort of easy to acquire and yeah.
No, but it's okay to say that because that's how most people think about it. So it's just like, calling it out. I'll give you two examples which come to my mind. One, of course, is 5 years ago, there was this S.H. Raza landscape of Mumbai that kind of broke all records, not only for a paperwork, but, for any work from that particular period of Raza. And those people who were bidding for it or who wanted that work completely would have forgotten that what is it that I'm paying for? It's a paperwork. Why should I pay so much money? I don't think that thought even came anywhere. And when everybody spoke about the work, they spoke about the period, they spoke about the style, they spoke about the subject, and it was a beautiful work. It didn't matter that it was on paper.
As I understand it, that paperwork might be very attractive because they represent, when artists typically work, they start to ideate on paper, sort of produce on the big canvas. So paper might also be a time of transition of a thought process or beginning of a work, which is unique.
Or experiment,
the start of an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one way of doing it. But then there are some who just prefer the medium of paper. For example, I can think of Nasreen Mohammadi, who worked exclusively on paper. And there's some canvases also, but for her, paper was the thing that she worked in. Or for instance, when you have Lakshmagar and he works on paper, the work is that. It's not anything else. It is always going to be on paper. No, but there's another example that I would like to talk about. When you're talking about market and when you're talking about value, one of the things that you get to hear is that, like, oh, the reason why there is a disparity between a canvas and a paper is simply because the life of a work on paper is only that much, and a canvas can live longer. Not really true. Look at Leonardo da Vinci is the Vitruvian Man. It's survived like, what, 500 years now?
Yes, at least.
And it's still there and still priceless. And like when I went and I saw the work, I was in complete like awe and I was stunned, and it moves you. It's an important work. And then do you look at it, oh, it's on paper or it's on parchment or, it's something like that? No. it's difficult for somebody who's just beginning to get into this whole art market to understand this. And the comfort comes from saying that, oh, historically, you know that an oil on canvas is much more sturdier. But, these are myths. I think it
Yeah.
is important to look at them, look at the works, look at what the artist has been doing, and then look at it, then come to conclusions, is what I would say.
So,
Yes, there are experiments also which artists do on paper, and it's the first point of beginning. And that is a different, exciting journey also. Sorry, you were saying something, Urvaja.
no, no, I was thinking about Nasreen. You brought her name. She is such a delicate artist almost, and her lines and her paper sort of evoke so much, no matter what you might feel about paper as a medium, and how she has been able to capture the imagination of many art lovers and buyers with just
Absolutely.
largely with monochromatic works.
Correct. So that's the point, you see. Her
Mm,
work, like you just said, it's delicate, and
mm.
that's what she works. And her work can't be seen any other way but on paper. So then would you hold
Might
it
be a
against her?
useful medium for an artist to also express the lightness of,
Yeah, absolutely. It's like certain things just have to be done on that particular medium. They can't be done any other way.
mm,
And then that's what is important. So to see it in the whole context of what the artist is trying to do, how the artist is trying to push forward. I would like to bring another example, since you talk about the need of expression. Like when
mm,
Sousa was at this point in the 60s, where he had just moved to New York, or even just before that, he was at a tricky position, point in his life, where the society had kind of looked down upon him because he had
mm,
married a young girl. He was in his 40s.
mm,
His then too soon to be wife or wife was barely out of her teens or in her
mm,
teens. How did that all pan out? And that was a juncture when he did something which is known as chemical alterations.
mm.
Now, what is that? So, what
Yeah.
he did was very interesting. He picked up these glossy magazines, Vogue and Vanity Fair, GQ, whatever the magazines in the 60s were. He picked up the pages which had the ads, because
Mm,
that was the most glossy, high quality paper and print. He
mm,
used a chemical. He effaced the existing image, not completely, not entirely, but just to kind of remove the markers of whose ad, which model. And then he reworked it with a marker on it. And when you looked at it, they looked like a typical Sousa drawing.
mm,
Some of them very erotic and highly sexual in content, or some of them that in the very strong, harsh faces, distortion. But here, he could achieve the message, or the communication was that he's questioning the society's churning out of these mass images where everything was pretty and perfect. And he's making a comment on that by literally, like,
defacing
taking some
that.
images. Yeah. And they are highly coveted pieces of work. Now, you can't get a chemical alteration in any other medium but paper. So that's how
A
paper
very
becomes
versatile medium as well.
absolutely, absolutely. Or again, versatile. See, you're giving me hints and I'm getting excited as usual. In Somnath Hor, when he did his Wound series, now
Mm,
what is that? Whether it's a painting or sculpture, that's a separate conversation. But he
mm,
actually cast paper pulp and and they were treated as print. And
mm,
that became a medium of expression. So intense was his pain that
mm,
he had to make those gashes onto the paper. He had to mold the paper. It was a very physical act.
mm,
He didn't have like these pretty molds, but he
mm,
cast it on paper, on a road. He cast it on different things. He gouged out stuff. He's used a knife on it, and there's no color. It's pure paper pulp. It's an image never just does justice to it, because you have to stand in front of the work and experience it as light falls on it, as it creates a shadow. And then, when you begin with, you don't see anything there. It's just like a piece of white thing that's hanging. But
mm.
as you start looking at it and as you move around, the work kind of emerges out and it moves you. again, that is possible because he could hold the paper and he molded it the way he wanted or the way he expressed it. That's paper.
That's
I think three examples here. And see what you said, versatile. Look at the diversity of, like, the delicacy that Nasreen had to have, the angst that Souza had against society, and using a ready-made or an existing material, or what Somnath did, and there are many more that we can keep talking about. But I think
some of the artists we were talking about earlier were Binod Bihari Mukherjee, Amrita, all artists who adopted paper as a medium of choice, not just something that was.
Yes, absolutely true. Absolutely true. So I think we should celebrate that, and we should look at it with that and give it the due respect, and not just say that, oh, this is an incomplete work, or this is only an experimentation. But that is not the case.
Very exciting, and I hope people, when they're looking at paperworks, understand the mastery that it takes for an artist to be able to work quickly on a medium that's unlike a oil on canvas, can't be done and redone, unless you're Souza.
Yeah. Or Hussein.
Hussein
very rarely did, with the preliminary sketches. He just went straight on to the canvas. Yeah. So, interesting perspectives on how artists work. So that could be another topic that we can take up, as to how does an artist create a work, or what the process is. But I think for now, Uruj, I think it's a great insight that we've managed to put forward to our listeners as to what is paper, what is a work on paper, and why an artist picks it up.
No, I think it's very interesting. It was an eye-opening talk for me as well, because I think I had some of the shutters which are quite prevalent.
Yeah. No, it's always I love talking of obviously, and this is one of the mediums that I really enjoy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Uruja. Bye.
You were listening to Artkyk, where we share personal views on subjects in the art world.
For more such content, please visit our website, www.artkyk.com. That's ARTKYK. Keep listening.